Well, welcome back to the PK podcast, where that PK stands for Preacher's Kid and Not Perfect Kid. And our co-host and guest today are certainly not perfect. That's why they're here. It's going to be really awesome. Eli Blevins, what's going on? Long time no see. We're definitely not wearing the same clothes that we wore the last time we recorded. This is for sure 2 weeks later after the last episode. How's life in Wilmington? What's changed since the last time we spoke?
It's no longer raining. It's just hot.
That's good. That's really good. Amazing how quick that weather can change. What was that, like 10 minutes?
It may have been like 11 minutes, and that's pretty long here for a thunderstorm. So it kind of comes and goes. And so, if you don't like the weather, just wait 10 minutes and you'll get something else.
Someone asked me this week why I always ask you about the weather. And they asked because we spent so much time talking about that in our last episode. And really the reason is because Eli gets to live in a beach city. And so anytime he says anything remotely negative about what's happening, I'm like, yeah, but you get to live in paradise. So maybe less complaining from you.
It's true. I like to call it the Hawaii of the East Coast. No, it definitely is not that. It is not the Hawaii of the East Coast. It's just a cool beach town.
It's not the Hawaii of the East Coast, but it is home to the Outer Banks, which has a new season coming very soon. And I could not be more excited about it. They actually film and stay in Wilmington.
Yes, they are frequent around here. They actually film most of it, though, in Charleston, which is a couple hours south, but they do a lot of stuff here as well. And during quarantine, they were all around. So like before people knew them, they were like out skateboarding around and just like hanging out, and then they got famous. And
they filmed the Pogue content in Charleston and the Kook content in Wilmington. Is that right?
Yeah, they actually use like our restaurants and all that kind of stuff here. And then they use like the water stuff in Charleston, which I don't know why we've got better water. I lived in Charleston, South Carolina. It's better here, but I digress. We're also home to Michael Jordan as well. So we have the hometown of Michael Jordan. So that's really like our biggest flex in the world is Michael Jordan.
Amazing. And also Iron Man lives somewhere around there or filmed somewhere around there.
Iron Man 3 was shot here. So they like closed down because the neighborhood I lived in, they were using part of the road as a film scene. And I remember that being a traffic disaster because Tony Stark was in the area.
And shout out to my wife. We are always saying hello to Eli's mom, Harriet Blevins, but hello to my PK wife, Olivia, who, when I came to visit you last, made me drive her to
One Tree Hill.
No. What's the movie where the preacher's daughter like dies of cancer, but the guy marries her anyway?
A
Walk. Is it A Walk to Remember?
Yes, A Walk
to Remember is filmed in Wilmington. The house is there, so we went and we saw it and we left.
We have One Tree Hill in that. That's like our claim to fame film-wise.
I'm a Christian, so I don't watch One Tree Hill, but I really do appreciate you bringing that up and telling us about that. That's awesome. Hey,
it's not worth it.
We've got an incredible PK guest with us today, and he's one of my best friends in the world, along with Eli. He's one of my favorite people to talk to on the phone. Every time that I talk to him, I leave encouraged and inspired and challenged to do something new. He's doing all kinds of incredible things that we're going to ask him about today, but he hails from the thriving metropolis of Villa Rica, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. He is the #1 fan of the Atlanta Braves, and he's here with us today. His name is Austin Williams. Everybody give it up for Austin. What's up, bro?
Hey, everybody. It's good to be here. I'm excited. John, I've said this to you before, you've got just one of the greatest podcasts meant for voices ever heard.
Well,
amen to that.
It was built for that.
I appreciate that. I always wanted to be on the radio when I was a kid. And there was this TV show called Frasier where this guy had this like radio show where he was just counseling people. And I was like, that's what I do as a pastor now. Like, it's all over the phone. People call me with ridiculous problems, and I sit there and pontificate on things until they come up with their own answers. They'd never take my advice. The life of a pastor, the life of a PK. So it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
That's right. You look good and sound good doing it. Eli, I know we just met, but I love that we have share for our love for the Braves. And I just feel like it's going to make us closer. I've got the poster right there. I've got the hat. I'm ready. I'm ready for another season.
I'm already, John, I'm already loving this podcast, and we've not even really started recording. Like, I mean, we are recording, obviously, but like he's saying all the right things. And I do want to say to our listeners that you do have the world's greatest host in Jon Groves, because he has the most perfect voice for this of all time. Whenever you want to narrate the Bible, James Earl Jones can have a seat and Jon Groves can take over.
Oh my goodness. Well, speaking of James Earl Jones, you can download the pray.com app for free. You can have a 100% free subscription by checking out the link that's in the show notes, where James Earl Jones does narrate the entire Bible. For those who don't know who that is, that's Mufasa from The Lion King. And there's just something special about hearing him say, "In the beginning, God created." And you're like, yes, he did.
And Darth Vader.
And Darth Vader. He's also Darth Vader, but he got saved. So there's no dark side whenever he is reading the Bible. Now that you've said the Darth Vader thing, though, I'm like, when he's quoting like Jesus talking to Judas, I wonder, does he get really is he like, whatever you do, do it quickly? You know, like, is it something like that? Does he really emphasize the word scars when he's talking about Jesus? Because like Scar was his brother in The Lion King. Like, see my scars, you know, it's got to be something really cool like that. I don't know. Check it out. The link in the show notes. But Austin, we're going to kick off our episode with some rapid fire questions. They are, don't think about it. Answer the first thing that comes to your mind, whether it's incriminating or not. Are you ready?
Bring it. I'm so ready. Let's
with
go.
An easy one. What is the best restaurant in all of Atlanta?
Yard House. I'm going to get
Is Toby the Scranton Strangler? Yes or no?
I think he confirmed he's not, so I'm going to say no.
Okay. What is the best Office quote or scene from the entire franchise?
I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
Go ahead and eliminate one restaurant right now. You get to Thanos, snap your fingers, and this franchise goes away, never to be heard from ever again. What is it?
Applebee's.
If we are, man, and just a pause on the rapid fire to say amen to that. If I wanted to microwave food and eat it soggy, I would eat at home. Again, we just lost another podcast sponsor, Applebee's. Applebee's home.
I'm so sorry.
Home to the 10 p.m. Half price apps, which every worship team goes to after the D Now or summer camp event.
Worship night. That's what we go after our worship night. So.
Can you be a Christian and also order the pretzels with beer cheese? Because I do want to say they are fantastic, but it is beer cheese.
Yes. Extra. I don't know if that's a rapid fire question for me or for the world, but yes, you can be. And I will order some.
Okay.
The answer is just yes.
Now, Austin, this is kind of like a life or death, friendship goes on or doesn't question. Are we drinking coffee or sweet tea?
Coffee.
Sorry, you just lost Eli. You out. You out.
I'm sorry, Eli.
What are we ordering whenever we go to whatever coffee shop?
Just black coffee.
Okay. So like you're one of those people that's like, yeah, I taste the earthy afterbirth in this. Like that's
No, I can tell if coffee's too acidic. I can tell that. I'm not like a bougie coffee drinker. I just don't like a lot of stuff in it. I'll get a cappuccino. That's my, like if I travel, I get a cappuccino. If I'm local, I just get black coffee.
Awesome.
Who is the best player on the Braves right now?
Best on the Braves right now, like who's the hottest is probably Dansby. Overall, I mean, it's probably Acuna, but
there you go.
Dansby right now. Michael Harris second.
What's your favorite worship song right now?
Favorite worship song right now? Oh man, Gyra. That's the popular one to say right now.
Yep,
and that's
you are
my
enough.
That's my go-to.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. So we have to ask that because you're a PK, but like, what's the song that's on repeat that you could not play in church?
Netflix Trip by AJR, because it's all about The Office. And so I've got that. I've got that on repeat.
And last question. If we're subscribing to the Baptist Faith and Message, which year are we subscribing to?
Is there a pass?
To be fair, I don't know what any of the particular years stand for, so it was kind of a trick question.
I couldn't tell you. I'm probably supposed to know, but I was listening to Netflix Trip.
Who has been the best pastors conference president in the state of Georgia?
Well, that's not even That's not my dad.
Yeah. Amen. All right. We just
Yeah.
had to toss that out there.
How
That
do you get that in there?
to all of our Southern Baptist PKs who are in the state of Georgia, you got to attend the pastors conference where Dr. Williams was elected twice in a row. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Twice in a row.
you've got to be really awesome to receive an honor like that. And so, Dr. Williams, shout out to you. You've raised an awesome son, and we appreciate your ministry. I love following what's happening at First Baptist Villa Rica online. From your student ministry to your young adult ministry, so much is happening that I want to dive into in this episode. But Eli, why don't you kick us off with the real content, the real, the good. What's coming?
So, Austin, give us a little kind of bird's eye perspective on being a pastor's kid. Give us kind of the 30,000 foot view of what it was like for you growing up as a pastor's kid, and kind of in your transition into even being in ministry now, what that looks like.
Yeah, I always loved it. Honestly, I had a lot of fun as a PK. It started when I think he went into ministry when I was about 5. I remember it vividly. I remember he was in the Army, and then he went into he was a trucker for Cisco Foods, and so we were around a lot. And then all of a sudden one day we sold our nice house and moved to Fruitland Baptist Bible Institute in the 90s, and stayed in the housing over there. And I remember being super confused, but it was just a part of what we were doing. So long story short, I always enjoyed it. I was the PK when I was young, like elementary young, and I'm sure a lot can identify with me on this. I was allowed to go to the youth camps. I was allowed to go to the Disciple Nows. I was allowed to be in there on, for midweek, for Wednesday nights, Sunday nights, whenever they did it, and just be a part of it. And it made me feel like I should be more a part of it, even though I was like 7. I wanted to play all the messy games. I wanted to do all of it. And I was always told I couldn't. I was too young. And my dad didn't want me to be like that kid, but every now and then he'd let me. So I just grew up around, he was a youth pastor for 15 years. So that's what I grew up with. I loved it. I loved being it. I mean, I've been going to youth camps since I was 5. So it's just what I know. The older I got, the more you see, and this is what I tell a lot of fellow PKs all the time, or if I go and preach somewhere and meet new people, I tell them that when you're a PK, you see all sides of church for the most part. And I really got to experience what I call the underbelly of church, what some would say is the darker side, the business side, the side that most don't see. And for a lot of people in this, it did it to me as well. It leaves them jaded towards not just ministry, but church. And so that's why I think a lot of people end up hurt, or they end up just resenting it altogether. I was that way for a little while, but then it turned back to, that was the perspective I had. Didn't really, it didn't mean that was what God was trying to do through these churches and ministries, if that makes sense. I realized that later on. I know that there's a business side to everything, and that there's a way to do it in a healthy way. Anyway, so then around my senior year, I felt called into ministry, spoke with my dad about it, and he was very excited. It wasn't like I never considered it like a birthright thing. I just felt like I too was called. It's what I grew up knowing and loving. And I thought that if I could kind of get away from my bubble of PK-ness, if I could get away from that and just from everything that I was taught growing up and just go and learn it myself. So I moved to North Carolina, went to school, and worked at a church out there for a few years, and developed my own sense of what God was telling me to do in ministry. Now, fast forward, it was kind of a dream after I was getting closer to getting my first degree, that my dad and I, because we've always had a great relationship, that we could work together. And so here we are. We've been doing it in September, we will have been at First Baptist Villa Rica together for 9 years. And things have been great. So that's kind of a flash forward through my life as a PK.
That's incredible. Awesome. I want to toss this question out to both of you, because you both work with your dads and your moms in ministry. And I know there's pros and cons to that. There are preachers' kids listening who are going, I don't know if that's my dream or no. I don't know if that's going to be possible or not. I don't know if I can stand to work with them or no, because there are definitely pros, but there can be some challenging things too. What does that look like for the both of you?
I'll let you answer.
For me, there's definitely challenges. A lot of people think that, and Eli, I don't know where you're at with it. I know for me, a lot of people at our church in particular, maybe, other churches that find out that my boss is my pastor and my dad, that it's just like easy, smooth, great, because we know each other so well. And that, I'm probably taken care of a little better because he's my dad. It's the exact opposite because he's my dad. And he'll be the first one to tell you. I mean, he's tougher on me. He has no problem coming, if I make a mistake, coming at me for it in a good way, in a respectful way. We argue openly. And I know like that's one of those things that the other staff like can't really get away with. You can't just openly argue with the pastor in staff meeting. We do, but we also get it and everyone else gets it. Like, and we're very open about working together. So there are challenges but we're able, because we know each other so well, there's a good ebb and flow, and
Right.
we've always been so close. So it works out for us.
Absolutely. I would say almost identical. I actually don't even report to my dad. I report to somebody else on staff. So it kind of creates a little bit of a barrier. But I'll say I'm pushed, like, because of that, like, I think I'm pushed more from my dad though too, like, just because, and my sister also is on staff here. So there's like times where it's like, where people will be like, oh, he's, it's just Eli or whatever. And then behind the scenes, it's like, I'm probably getting like pushed the hardest, but he's also so protective of us that he would never actually like show any of that either. So it's like, there's such a fine line. And I would say, do we get it perfect? No. But are we close to like as good as we can be? Absolutely. I would say the best thing though, honestly, is that me and my dad are both people persons, wherever you want to call it. Like we just like hanging out and talking all the time. So
The people's
it's not like uncommon.
paper, what is that? The
people person. We're Enneagram 7s, so it means we like to be around people a lot. And it will be like every day. It's like, hey Eli, did you see like what's happening here? And it's like some sports news going on. So he'll like come in the office and we'll talk about it. But also at the same time, like, because he's my dad, I can be a little bit maybe sterner back if I need to, like with some things, which is a good and bad, but it is what it is. So I would say though, it's just such a good, easy working relationship. And so if you were actually to be like in our office dynamic, like it would never be like, oh, Eli's getting any different treatment. If anything, he's probably getting harder treatment. So, but in the best way. So there's like really not many negatives. So if you're a pastor's kid out there and this could be your future, I would say embrace it. If you don't embrace it and you try to fight it, it's going to suck. If you're going, oh, this is awesome. And I now look back generations, there's so many family businesses out there, and legacy businesses. And like, I want to learn from them. How do they kind of work together and coexist? So I embraced where I was. And I'm going, but I also grew up in this church. This is the one place I wanted to be. This is the one place that like I could give my life to. And so that's what we're doing.
That's incredible. One of the reasons that we open just about every episode by asking about the 30,000 foot view of life as a PK is because inevitably each guest has hit on something that at least one listener goes, that's me. Someone else gets it. Someone else has been through that, etc. In other words, we like to tell you that your story matters. And that also is the name of an incredible podcast that we highly recommend you subscribe to. Your Story Matters is a great show. It's a conversation hosted by Austin Williams. Tell us about how that got started and what have you been learning and enjoying in that context of ministry?
I love it. I've always been, like Eli said, I'm a big people person too. And as my dad is as well. And I think in a church that's our size, there's a lot of people that kind of get, what's the famous saying, like fall through the cracks and stuff. And, you don't really get to hear their stories before they're gone. And so I've been trying to make it almost like a mission to share with people, other people's stories from not just within our church, but from the community and other areas. The podcast was just meant to be a vessel for that, for people that I know or even don't know. I just want to hear their story or let them share it and give them a platform to where they can just at least share with people their redemption story or who they are. That's really all it is, just to show, you and to others. And for a lot of people that have been on the podcast, they've told me that it's been almost therapeutic. They've never really shared it openly like that before. And so it's a little more intimidating when I put a mic in front of you and I'm asking you questions, and we do it in like a little studio. But it's been, for me, it's been great. And I'm still learning. It's been a big hiatus. It's been a big change what we're doing. I've given a lot of Your Story Matters to our young adults ministry, and we do now more of like a mini docu-series. We record people sharing their stories, and that's been a lot of fun. So I've learned a lot from just hearing people share what's on their heart.
I can't remember, because I got to be on Your Story Matters in 2019, and that was a ton of fun. It was a great convo. It was definitely therapy. You asked some of the best questions, but I can't remember, did we do that in person, or I think I was one of the first virtual interviews.
You were my first virtual interview, and I think it was the first or second time we'd really even talked. I know we'd gotten to know each other through like Instagram, and I think through Nick Hurst is how you and I met. But then, you were on the podcast, and I think we edited it out, which is great about podcast. I almost broke the news that you were going to ask your wife for her hand in marriage.
I remember that. I was getting ready to resign from my church and ask Olivia to marry me, and we ended up almost talking about both of those things. And I was like,
"Yep,
that's a no. It's not public yet, so that should be the worst way for someone to find out." But it was so great. You and I met, I think, the first time in person at it's like this like outdoor mall type space in Atlanta.
It was like an Italian place.
Well, we were near to a coffee shop that you used to work with doing social media, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Land of 1,000 Hills. Yeah.
Yes. So you were telling me back then about the power of story and reaching people digitally and these infamous coffee cup photos. Let me just say that no white girl has ever taken as good a coffee pic as Austin Williams has. There's an art and a science. So first, I need you to tell us how to take the first coffee pic, how to take the best coffee pic. But second, talk to us about how you've used social media both in business and in ministry, because you're doing quite a bit of it even still today.
Yeah. So your first great question is, so I didn't know how to use my Instagram when I was in my early 20s. I just thought I was teaching myself how to do graphic design, and I really like typography and stuff like that. So I thought if I could take a picture of my coffee and just have it lined up perfectly to where it was centered underneath my camera with the right lighting, I could put words in there and make it look like they're coming out of the coffee cup. So that's what I did. And then it got picked up. Some of my pictures ended up being featured on some coffee shops and pages like that, and like magazines. So that was weird. I wasn't even trying to do that, but it happened. That's how I got plugged into Atlantic Station and Land of 1,000 Hills, and doing a little marketing here and there. And
I mean,
so that was fun. Are you kidding me?
This photo right here, like we got church carpet, church shoes, church coffee, but it's beautiful. Like you could take something bitter and make it sweet. That's what's happening right here. It's like, wow, amazing.
That's awesome.
The number of deacons who've had a problem at this very spot. And you took, man. I mean, this is just inspirational for me. Now, how many times did you have to stand on a chair and be over top the table in a public venue to grab the perfect photo?
So I'm too cautious of people watching me do weird things like that. So probably like 20 times. I don't know. Probably Probably a whole lot. I've done it. I've done it a few times. Those are my old preacher boots right there too. Rest in peace. Those are long gone. But I'm definitely reevaluating what's on my Instagram. That's for sure. I don't remember your second question now.
The second question had to do with using social media in business and in ministry, because once you've mastered the coffee pick, you can do just about anything. It started as coffee. Now it's Christian. And I mean, that's powerful right there. That's probably the title of this episode, Eli. I don't know what you think about that, but
let's do it.
Black coffee and black hearts. I don't know. It's something, it's a work in progress. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But you've been using social media in ministry to tell story like you did in business. And through that, you've been launching some really cool things that, like Instagram, started from zero and now we're reaching people. And I think PKs are always looking for, like, where can I serve now in a way that's unique? I want to do something. I want to use whatever gifts I have. And so maybe you have an iPhone. Can you use that for ministry? I think you have the answer to that, and you could give us some steps on how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, my whole job is done like on this or my iPad. I mean, I write on, like, in my notes app. Most of my messages are on my notes app. I do all my graphics on my phone, on the iPad. So, like, really all it takes is lean into being a millennial at this point and apply those skills that you've developed to businesses and churches that don't have said skills. You know, in an area like a metropolis like Villa Rica is, there's a lot of businesses and churches, and not just in Villa Rica, but in other places outside of city areas that have yet to develop a person or a person that is there to develop those skills. And so, you know, I think one of the cool things about seeing a lot of sides of the church as a PK is I got ahead of that, because I kept thinking, man, what if our, you know, my dad's very successful student ministry for years and years, what if they had an Instagram back then? They never did. So why don't we, you know, do that now? But let's not just have one. Let's make it, I can't think of like a clever way of saying, but let's make it like look good. And this is like free advice for anyone out there that's running a ministry's Instagram. But like, people want to know the information. They want to know the information and they want to celebrate what you've done. And so that's like a big application piece that we do here is we plan it, we execute it, and we celebrate it. And our Instagram is supposed to reflect that. Any of our social media, our website is information-based, celebration-based. And that's what it's for. What you see a lot of business-wise or church-wise is like a lot of papyrus font, or you see a lot of like Comic Sans, or you'll see like a Google imaged Bible verse, screenshot post, screenshot post, screenshot post. And then if I want to learn more about your organization or your ministry, and if I click, the first place a 29-year-old like me is going to go is to your Facebook page or your Instagram. And if I just see, as much as I love Jesus in the Bible, I truly, truly do. If I only see Bible verses on there, all I know is that you also love the Bible like I do, but I don't know anything about your ministry.
Yep.
And that's a very simplistic thing to apply. It's just crazy how many people don't apply it. So that's where I like to come in and help out. And that's what I've done here. And really, I do everything on the phone. And it started with, it's so funny, it started with those coffee pictures. I would not have the job I have now if it weren't for teaching myself how to put text inside of coffee cups. And along the way, that turned into graphic design and marketing. So
now you not only can put masterful text inside of a coffee cup, but you also have the unique skill of putting text on top of toast. And so our YouTube viewers are able to see this, but that's next level skill right there. Like, and that's not even Photoshop. That's some time that you invested in that.
So I'm deleting my Instagram once we get off here. Second,
no,
that's burned Atlanta Braves logo into toast. That is not me at all. I put that in a toaster and it came out like that. And I wish I still had that toaster. I'm going to be completely honest.
Well, we're talking about culture of celebration. So we're celebrating your toast art. We're also celebrating how you really have sought to be all things to all people over the last few years. And back in like 2012, when Justin Bieber was really like rising to fame, the way that you were able to reach people for Jesus was by adapting his look. And
oh man,
oh
God.
This is why if you just listen on Spotify and you don't watch on YouTube, these are the things that you miss out on. But let me just say, that photo will probably make its way to our Instagram. It has been screenshot, so there's nothing that Austin can do to get rid of it now.
Fantastic.
In fact, let's just throw in one more. Like when you're in the Lord's army, yes, sir. And you're prepping for a sermon series or VBS, like, yeah. I really appreciate that.
Thanks, guys. This has been fun. Thanks for having me on. And we can talk again. Jon, we're probably done. Eli, I'd love to connect more. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, Jon. You're it's hard because I sit here and I laugh and I'm going, oh no, I hope nobody finds my pictures from more than 5 or 6 years ago, because it would be bad.
Bro, if anybody has the most embarrassing ones, it's me. And I don't know if I've archived them or if they're still out there just to remind me to stay humble. But like when Instagram came out, what you did is you posted selfies or pictures of your food. Like that's what it was for. Or if you saw something pretty, it was like, let me share this piece of beauty with the world. It's not that anymore. And I scroll back to like 2010 Jon and I go, ew, what were you doing? Like nothing that's happening on your Instagram is remotely as embarrassing as what I thought was cool. It wasn't. Well, Austin and Eli have always been way cooler than I have been.
That's not true.
I don't feel that way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I definitely don't. I feel like I'm about 10 years behind in life with you. So
whatever. Culture of celebration. And Austin, I'm not gonna talk about the photo of the poker chips on your Instagram because I don't want to incriminate you with any deacon boards or anything.
Yeah, come on now. I am still Baptist.
But culture of celebration. What does that look like? I visited Eli's church. And that's very much a thing that is alive at Life Church in Wilmington, a culture of celebration. But after you define that, maybe that's open to the both of you to define what that looks like practically. I'm going to say that most PKs are thinking what I would have thought if I were 15. That doesn't exist in our church context. And can I be the one to implement it? And if so, how? Like, how can I be a force for celebration and good? Can I be a culture shifter of my church in my role, if you will, as a PK? What do you think about that? What does it look like to have a culture of celebration?
I'm going to steal a line from a pastor's kid who we're going to have on this show maybe one day, maybe not, by the name of Rich Wilkerson Jr. And he says, we make the hard look fun. And really, it's like, because we're a portable church right now, so we're setting up and breaking down. But we're going to have fun doing it. So we're going to party. We're going to have some fun music. And so, so we're going to make it look fun. Anything that is difficult, anything that looks challenging, 5 a.m. wake up times, we're going to party still at 5 a.m., even if it's in the dark. So that's just kind of what it is for us. And then that just carries over into our church culture. We're going to have a party every Sunday. We have the best news to share. Why in the world not celebrate it?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think if they see you, if the people of your church see how much you're having fun leading church, they'll have fun with you. It doesn't have to be because I've seen that. I've been a part of it. I felt it. I have felt boredom and not just boredom. That's such a simplistic way of putting it. It's just like I thought this was supposed to be Sunday we're celebrating what Jesus did, but it feels like we're just going through the motions. And so it's great for like, again, we keep going back to like the fact that I'm a PK that happens to work with my dad. But I think it's evident that he and I have the same mission and that we both have fun trying to accomplish said mission. And when they see that and our staff sees that, first off, if you can champion the staff to enjoy doing their job, they'll do that for you at the church, and then the church feels it, and you can see it. I mean, like on a Sunday morning, it's not what it was 8-9 years ago. It was, right now everyone loves being here. And you can see it online. I mean, when I scroll on Facebook, and I'm a part of some like local groups on Facebook where they, people ask questions in the community like, hey, where's a church I can go to? Just moving to the area. And it is just flooded with people from our church. Like, oh, come here, trust us. We are family, be a part of it. And
yep.
So that's been cool to see. So the culture of celebration is, I think, necessary to show how much we love doing what we do and who we do it for.
For sure. I think one of the things that we like to do is treat every Sunday like it's Easter for somebody, because every single Sunday we give a chance for people to come to the Lord. Every single Sunday, we don't miss that. It doesn't matter if we're talking about tithing or if we're talking about evangelism. We are going to every single week offer that to somebody. And when you have that kind of perspective, and that trickles down into your serve teams and to, your volunteers and leaders, like that today is someone's day that they could get saved. Like this is a real day for somebody. It's not just the day that happens on Easter because that's what it's about, but like in the middle of June, people can hear the same message of the gospel at some point in the service. Well, it kind of makes everyone, have to kind of elevates the standard of excitement. Like there's always this anticipation, like what God's going to do. And so that spills over for our teams and our staff. And ultimately it's like, we never, like we have this like thing that we say, like, you never know what's going to happen. Like we just never know. And some Sundays, no one gets saved. Great. That's fine. Some Sundays we got several people that get saved. And it's just like incredible, but you never know what's going to happen. And so we're going to celebrate and have a culture of joy because for someone, it's their first time there and they may get saved.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of my mentors a couple years ago, and I was prepping for Easter Sunday. And this man has pastored one of the largest churches in America, and he's a hero of mine and so many people. And I was asking for his advice on this sermon. And I'm like, I'm prepping for Easter Sunday because it's like the Super Bowl of Sundays. And like he and I are close enough that he can be mean and sarcastic, and I know that he's not actually being mean and sarcastic. And he looks at me and he's like, never, ever say that again. And I'm like, what? And he goes, you don't compare the greater to the lesser in order to assign value to the greater. He's like, Easter is the greatest thing that has ever happened in the history of mankind. He's like, so basically the Super Bowl is like the Easter of football, and it challenged me. And so then he took it one step further. It was like, jab, jab, right hook. He's like, and actually, if that power lives within us and someone could accept Christ this Sunday or this Wednesday or at that Thursday night prayer gathering, then every time we meet is like the Easter of that day, and he went on it. And what he was saying was what we get to do is awesome. And we never want to lose sight of that. And I started thinking about practically what it would look like as a 13-year-old PK to influence a culture of celebration like that, and really create a culture organization-wide or organism-wide in your role as a 13-year-old. And it could be something as simple as so many people spoke to your dad today and said, hey, I didn't like this, or hey, did you hear this bad news? Or be praying for sister so-and-so because she's got this going on. Or, hey, do you have an update on, can I ask you for help? Could you pray? And it's all part of ministry, but it can be kind of a drag. And your dad, your mom, probably their own biggest critics. And so they are like, man, I forgot to say that in the sermon. I forgot to do this. I wish I would have done this today. I wish I would have been able to speak to this person. All it takes is their son or daughter getting in the car after church and going, you know what was really awesome today? Did you see that usher who went out of his way to take care of? If you could be the eyes and ears for good things that are happening in God's house and be the informant of that, all of a sudden you begin to give your parents something to celebrate. and what they celebrate is going to be repeated in the church. And so if you're like, man, my church, lots of work to do, start by picking out the good things and letting your dad know about them and being a part of thanking those people and celebrating. Celebration culture doesn't have to be a brand new church plant with a really cool party budget. It doesn't, that's great. And that's awesome. But you might be in established church, small town America. And as a preacher's kid, your position is so important. You have the opportunity to influence the entire church in the car on the ride home. And it starts with the small things.
Yep. I don't know about you. I think that if you're a pastor's kid and you're listening to this and maybe you're just looking for some extra brownie points, or maybe you're or not, I guarantee you, reposting one of your church's social media things and just sharing with people how excited you are about what's going on. I mean, when other people see that, there's especially if you're a teenager, they're going like, okay, wow, if he's excited about this, then I should be excited about this as well. And I found that sometimes it breaks the kind of the rut that people get in. The devil likes to use familiarity as a tactic to get people stagnant and stale. And if you're like reposting stuff where you're like talking about how excited you were to be in church and you're 15, 16, 17, I guarantee you that could have a huge trickle effect to the members of your church as well. And so try it this Sunday. Why not?
Yeah, I 1,000%. That's such a small thing that has a big impact. Just reposting something from your church. Not only that, leaning into being the PK was huge. I used to I went through a little phase in high school where I would like go to a party with some friends and everyone would be like, oh, everyone, the preacher's kids here, hide the alcohol, all that stuff. And I used to get so mad because of course everyone knew who Kevin was. And so when I'd show up, that's what the topic would be about. I hated it. But then, I felt God telling me like, hey, stop listening to them, start listening to me. And man, when I started leaning into it, it had a lasting impact on that ministry. And not because of just me, but just because I think my dad could feel that, hey, I believe in your vision and I'm your son. And so let me help be the feet to that vision if I can be. And now I get to do it full time. So.
Absolutely. I think it's so we hear as pastors' kids, like you said, kind of the underbelly of what happens. And part of the reason me and John even connected, even starting this podcast, is because we would get on calls with each other and just talk through things as a no judgment filter to each other. And that was a level of trust that we had built over the years. But then we would go, but you know what? Like all this great stuff is happening. We're just frustrated with this, like one or two things here and there, and they're not even that big of an issue. And so I think, though, it's so easy for people, especially teenagers, young adults who are listening to this, to get jaded, to immediately kind of shift that and to go, oh, no, I don't want that. Or same position as you. I'd go to somewhere and they'd be like, oh, no, Eli's here. We can't do this. And I'm like, no, like yes, you shouldn't be doing that. But at the same time, like, you don't have to be a loser either. It's kind of like I was like, don't be so weird about it. And that kind of got me to this place where I was just like, here I am. I guess I'm just stuck with it, being a pastor's kid. And but honestly, when I leaned into it, like you said, I was like, oh, there's so much, like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, it really is. And but like, there were some frustrating times I was like, John, what am I supposed to do here? And so that's kind of how this podcast even got birthed, is because we had similar thoughts as you, listener, or you, Austin. Like, we had these similar things. And so one thing we like to say, like, if you need to cry or cuss or whatever, come talk to us. And same with Austin, like, shoot any of us DMs about if you're ever frustrated, and let's just like kind of fix your focus, or kind of like just show you like, look, there's better things ahead. Like, what you're in, like, it may kind of be like odd, and you're not really liking it, or you may feel kind of alone, but we're going to be here to champion you and show you how great the church is, or how great your ministry is, or your parents, or whatever.
Well, I want you to stay tuned on Instagram and make sure to check out the show notes. Follow Austin. So all of the links to his socials are listed below. Also stay tuned because Revival Nights are coming to Villa Rica, and Austin is going to be bringing the word, and it's going to be incredible. I can't wait for that. One of my favorite parts about this podcast, though, is the way that we get to close every episode. This is kind of our legacy as PKs. Every single episode, a letter to our younger selves. Dear Younger Me is what we call it. And I don't care what age it is that you pick, Austin, but if you knew then what you knew now, and you got to go back in time and just share a message with PK Austin, what would you say to him?
Great question. Just lean into it and stay obedient to what God is saying. Stop running it or running away from it. Stop fighting it. Be obedient. It sounds, and I think that's a very pastorally thing to say, is to be obedient. And it's so much harder than you realize. But I think that over time, if you just lean into what God is telling you to do and allowing you to be, being a PK is, next to my son and wife and my daughter who's due any day now, it's been one of the biggest blessings of my life. And though it has jaded me to some things, and though my dad and I could not be more different, the way our leadership style is different, our preaching style is different, we are different, but we work very well together, and I've learned a lot from him. And so I would tell that, Austin, take notes now, because you're going to wish you had when you're 29 and you're in the thick of it. So that's what I'd say.
Well, Eli, I really enjoyed having Austin on the podcast today. I thought that the content was incredible. There's probably a few office quotes scattered throughout the episode that the average person wouldn't get, but that's okay. We always say that this show is the listeners are just here to supplement our good time. But it was so good. What were your thoughts, bro?
Man, I loved it. I love hearing things like how we can make social media and turn it into a good thing. I love hearing, and I can relate to him as well, as I work for my dad. So I very much so resonated with that. And so, yeah, that was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I do want to encourage everyone to go follow Austin and check out his podcast, Your Story Matters. Scroll back and listen to the old episodes. It's been a really cool conversation that I've enjoyed listening to, I believe, since its inception, or at least I've binge listened to a bunch of the old episodes. I'm not sure that binge listening is a thing, but it should be. We're going to make it a thing. It's a new word that we've just invented. Why binge watch Netflix when you could binge listen podcasts? That sounds so much more educational and helpful and wholesome. Unless you're listening to true crime, I'm not sure that God is with you in that. Those kind of freak me out and cause me to fall asleep while driving. But nonetheless, Eli, I remember finding Austin on Instagram before we met for the first time, and I found some of his preaching clips, and I was like so stoked to meet him. I'm like, this guy gets it. In a day where so many quote unquote influencers do tweetable talks filled with pithy, limp-wristed, woke and weak nonsense. I hope that was strong enough. My disgust for bad preaching. Here was a PK who was preaching, and I was like, yes. So anyway, you got to go check out his sermons too. They're really, really good.
Absolutely. And might I add, let's go Braves. That is all.
Let's go.
Well, Austin, thanks for being on the show with us today. We love you. We appreciate you. Hope that you have an incredible week. Praying for future Williams, getting ready to enter the world any day now.
Thank you, guys. I loved it. Yes, please keep praying. I'm excited, terrified. If you combine those, that's anxiety. That's where I'm at, but I'm pumped at the same time.
Come on. Everyone who wants to help out Austin, they're now accepting HelloFresh subscriptions. As many as you could send to their door. They're really, really excited about it. Amen.